Okay, so the main functions here: void setup, void draw, and we'll give it a nice frame rate, go 60 FPS, give it a background, light blue, there we go, and then we also need a size for the canvas, so canvas size there, and let's run this, see what we get. Okay, so it will be 1000 width, 1000 height. This is the width, this being the height, that's the background color. Okay, so let's go about making the ground. The ground will be, let's see, it's going to be a rectangle. So this is how I do the rectangle. Then we need where we'll be starting from on the x-axis, which would be, let's see, at 0 on the x-axis, and then the y would be height, let's say minus 200. And now we need to define how big it's going to be. So it's going to be width on the x-axis, and then let's see, 200, I believe. Run this again. Yeah, so you can see there we've got a rectangle. That's going to be our ground. Okay, so now let's do no stroke so we don't get that line. Run it again. There we go, ground. Now I'm going to change the colors later, so let's just do a full. It's white at the moment, so we'll leave it white, decide the colors later. Okay, so we've got the ground. Now the first thing we need is the player. So to do the player, we're going to need a class, and the class has got a constructor. So player constructor. Okay, so I know okay, we're going to need an x position, we're going to need a y position, we're going to need the width and the height. So let's do that. X is basically where it's going to start. So okay, let's decide the width first. It's going to be 50, and height, let's make it a square, will be 50 as well. And then x will start at, let's put it in a bit, and y would be, let's define a ground, which is the y position of the rectangle, and then this would be at ground, no, at a height, wait, is it? It would be at ground minus the actual height of the player. So processing works in floats. We've got WH ground, and then X and Y for now. So let's see here. Okay, no errors. Okay, so now we need to actually get a reference to the player. So it's a player object. We'll call it player. And then to actually put it in, player will equal a new player object. Okay, good. So no errors, still good. And now let's first show. So we'll write a function show, which is a void, it's not returning anything. this function will then need, let's do no stroke again. Let's do make it red, which would be RGB, so full red. And then the size would be, it's going to start at X, going Y with width and height. And now to actually show our player, we'll do player.show, and then you can see the player. Brilliant. Okay, so now we're going to do an update function. This update function will keep track of a few things. So firstly, what we're going to keep track of is we want gravity. We want the player to be falling so that later it can jump. So to add the gravity, we'll do a function called void. We'll call it update. And it's also not returning anything. And then what I like to do is I like to separate my logic of the game with the drawing. So of course here we'll copy this and have an update function. Okay, so update. Let's see, we've got update, we've got show. We want the player not to be able to go below the ground. So this will yeah, it's going to be a ground check, so the player will never be able to go below ground. So to do this, we need to check the Y position if it's greater, because processing goes from 0 to height. So if Y is greater than ground, then Y would be equals to ground minus H. So now we'll add a gravity and make it about 2.5, and it's also going to be a float. This auto format there, see if this works. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take the Y position and have it equal to gravity. Now let's see, will this go up or down? Whoops, click save there. Okay, so it's going down. So let's check the ground. It's greater or equal to ground. So now it's getting pushed back. Let me just check my ground checking here. If it's greater than that, just put it back. Maybe just to ground. Okay, so it needs to be at ground. It did stop there. So we need to do height. So I'm not quite sure why doing height didn't work. I'm guessing I need to add the height. No, well, that just pushes it further and goes further down. Okay, let's see here. Okay, let's put the height, no, the Y position at, say, 300 to see that it's actually falling. And then, of course, it gets keep pushing back. So, Y position greater than or equal to this. I have no idea why it's looping. Okay. Let's pull up my code here for the finished product. I can't remember right now. Okay. Let's just move that sideways and let's have a look here. A ground check. Okay. I have an idea how that works. My brain. Okay, so we're checking if that's above ground, then why that this will fix it, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Yes, there we go. Okay, so if the y plus the height is greater or equal to ground, then y will be ground. Okay. So now, the next thing we want to do is also give it a velocity. So let's do velocity equals 0, and then velocity is also going to be a float. And then what we're going to do is velocity will always equal gravity, plus equals, of course. And then let's see, will this work? Yep, here we go. You can see there we go. So we've got the player. We've got a velocity that's being affected by gravity, and the y is being affected by the velocity. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is add an enemy for start. So I'm going to make a new tab, and we'll just call this player, so you can move this player class over. And then we'll also make an enemy. So now we've got an enemy and a player, and it's asking me to save. I'll just save it like somewhere quickly. New folder, blah, blah, and then let's do demo. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is have a class enemy, and the enemy can basically inherit a lot of stuff, but I'm not going to do that right now. So we'll have a constructor, and again it's going to have an x. Let's make it 50 for now. Y equals, let's do 100, and then I'm sorry, width and height, of course. The x, it should start, I'm gonna have it start off screen, so that would be width, and y would be let's see here, here's the ground position, and then it also needs to go back by its height, and these are of course all floats. So we've got a width, a height, x position, y position, and that's all for now. So to also show it, we'll do no stroke. We'll make this one green, which is RGB as well. We'll use a rectangle, and it will be at X, Y, and with height, of course. So this is a void, and then void update. So in the runner, the enemy goes from right to left across the screen. So we'll need a speed variable. And let's set it to 10. This is also going to be a float speed. And then its x position will minus equal the speed. So that should be good for the enemy. So now let's add an enemy. Let's do one for now. Let's just do an enemy, of course, equaling a new enemy. And then we'll do enemy.show, and also we'll update the enemy, and let's go. There you go. The enemy is now moving across the screen. Now, of course, we don't need one enemy. We're going to want to have a few enemies. And to do that, you'll need an array or array list. So I'm going to use array list because it is kind of easier to work with than arrays. And for this purpose, it will be like an array in JavaScript. So we're going to rename this to enemies. So we'll have an array list. We'll set it to a new array list of enemies. Whoops. So there we go. And then instead of enemy, we'll do enemy.add, and then we'll add a new enemy. And then of course we need a loop here. So for int I equals 0, I smaller than enemies dot size I plus plus. So for all enemies, we want to update them separately. So we'll do enemies dot get I dot update. This will update all enemies, and we'll do the same for show. And nothing should change at the moment. Boom, still works. So now, if an enemy is off screen, we want to delete it. So let's just do a few comments here. This, of course, is your update. Now let's delete off screen, because you don't want a ton of enemies cluttering up your memory, and the size of this array will just keep growing and growing and growing. So let's do a check. So if let's see here, if let's grab a loop, same loop, because we needed the loop. So if enemies dot get I dot x position is smaller than 0, we want to remove that enemy. So we'll do enemies dot remove, and we'll do I. So auto format that, and let's see if we get any errors. Nope. So let's see, it should be 0. Yeah, that's good, because I'm just gonna do function keep rest. This will help us pause the game. Sorry, not function, void keep rest. So I'm going to do a print line and just grab like a few key codes. So let's see here. let's get space, hello, space, let's do up arrow and down arrow, stop that. So space is, whoops, space is 32, the up arrow being 38, and down is 40. So what we're going to do, if I press the up arrow, which is 32, not 32, it's 48, excuse me, 48, then we're going to say no loop. No loop meaning pause. Then if you want to resume, you grab this, but instead we're going to grab the down arrow and we'll just say loop. So resume. These are all built-in processing functions as well. So yes, let's check this out. Just restart it. Okay, I can pause, I can resume. Okay, great. Okay, so let's, what can we do now? Okay, so we've got one enemy. Great, it gets deleted off screen. So now let's push another enemy. Like, let's just push another one at some point. So let's, just gonna comment this out. Let's see here. So we've got our width from 0 to width. So let's say if an enemy and its x is equal to the middle of the screen, we'll add another one. So if let's once again just grab a for loop. So if the enemies.getI dot x equals width divided by 2, we're going to say let's add another one. So let's see if this works, and there you go. So now this might be too fast to add an enemy, so we can push it back. So half of this would be 500. So let's say we want it to be at 600 or 700, so you can push it back a bit. See, no, that's the other way. Excuse me. So yeah, you can see we've got this going. So I think the last thing I want to do now is just quickly add a jump feature. So we'll grab the space key code, which we've got here is 32, and what we're going to do, we want to say player dot jump. This is a function I haven't written yet, and we'll also have a boolean. We'll have a player is grounded, because we only want to jump when we're actually touching the ground. So we'll do a check to see if we're grounded. If we are, then jump. So let's go to player. Let's see, we've got a boolean is grounded, and this is going to default to false. And then we'll also have a jump function, void jump, and so here we're doing the ground check, right? So if it is grounded, which it is here, grounded gets set to true. So I'll just do else as well here. So grounded is false at this stage, and it is also true when we are touching the ground, which is great. So now we can say, okay, we're checking if we're grounded to jump already. So let's do velocity. Let's set it to 0. And now we want to add a force when we jump. So velocity plus equals 15. Setting velocity to 0 here just makes it easier to jump. It stops any gravity that's acting upon the velocity currently, and then we'll be able to basically lift off. So let's see if we can jump. Now gravity seems a bit strong. Let's lower it. I think this should lower the gravity. Nope, that makes it higher. So let's set it to 1. It's getting there. I can almost jump over. 0.75. And then boom, we're able to jump over. So now, lastly, we want a max height for our enemies. So let's say 125 or even 150. So we want to be able to jump over. So let's just go back. I think I want a stronger gravity still. So let's go for 2.5 again, because I want to I kind of want the player to snap back to the ground quickly. So I think that's good. So let's just say let's make this 30. And are we jumping that? I'm just going to set this down to 2 maybe. Snapping a bit too fast back. And there we go. We're jumping our enemies. Our enemies are getting deleted off screen. And that's basically part 1 to an endless runner. So let's end it there.